Hi, I'm Shadman, and the introduction to this episode is a little bit different. That's because my two guests are talking about something that's deeply personal to their own experiences, and to my own, in fact, minority race representations in Singapore. Singapore's idea of racial harmony is something that's deemed so integral to life here. Yet, with recent incidences of brownface ads and rap videos, it has become an issue that's pretty contentious in public space. And in those moments of public discourse on race, we sometimes forget that it's also a deeply individual issue. So how can we culturally, creatively, and productively talk about race and its representations in Singapore? So, welcome to the fourth episode of In Culture, a new series by the Cultural Research Center at NUS. In this episode, I talked to two artists who put up a lecture performance at the substation called Brown is Haram, which dealt with minority race narratives in Singapore. We talk about how to examine race as an identity, how to use our own experiences to start dialogues, and all other things in culture. Hi, maybe we can just start off with introductions.
Hi, my name is Kristian. I work at a software company and I do diversity and inclusion for them. On the side, I dabble in creative writing. I also help facilitate different dialogues, especially for men, to critically examine our masculinities.
Hi, I'm Mysara. I'm a grad student with the Malay Studies faculty at NUS. Previously, I was a journalist and documentary producer. So I mainly do lens-based work and I write. General interest is really looking at deconstructing narratives, whether it's historical narrative or state narrative, and how we understand them and how that affects how we see ourselves.
It does seem like the two of you came from different backgrounds. So how did you guys come together and how did you decide what particular issues you wanted to explore?
We were both part of the Substation's Concerned Citizens Program residency. And so as for the residency, we were supposed to develop a final showcase. So you don't see a lot of collaborations between brown women and brown men talking about, I think, an important issue. But there are intersectionalities that should be discovered, should be explored. I think one intersection was the idea of being desired as brown people. So although, obviously, it's different experiences, but that's something that's not talked about.
Some of these topics, for example, like desire, I guess, manifests quite differently when you also then take into account some of our other identities that we hold on to, right? Like our gender, our class, or like our educational background. So for example, things like success, also how success is eclipsed by gender.
The two of you are also pretty active in other pursuits, and I wanted to know if that had any kind of impact on how you approached this performance. So, Kristian, you were involved in SG Climate Rally. Did that play any kind of role in your piece?
I don't talk specifically about the topic of the climate crisis, but I think how it's definitely shaped at least my writing or my form of storytelling is that it has, I think, emboldened me quite a bit. Practicing activism in Singapore, obviously, I think looks a specific way. And I think that has definitely helped with, I guess for me, just trying to be a bit more evocative with what I'm trying to say and really get to the point and really get to the heart of it much quicker.
Okay, and Mysara, how did your experiences as a journalist and documentarian kind of show up in the issues that you presented in your performance?
I think my experience in journalism definitely played a part in my writing. Not just in journalism, but also my involvement with discussions, especially when it comes to talking about Malay progress, basically narratives that I hear from people in the community itself, community leaders who perpetuate certain narratives, definitely comes out a lot in my writing.
Right. Well, we've talked about your past work, and in past episodes of this show, the academics consistently raise this issue of work within cultural space. So I wanted to ask, would you consider yourself a cultural worker? And what do you think constitutes cultural work?
I wouldn't really call my work like an artwork, to be honest. So I think in some sense I would feel much more comfortable calling myself a cultural worker, because I know my kind of works do not necessarily fit into your typical white walls of a commercial gallery. To showcase in certain spaces means to uphold certain hierarchies, which I feel like defeats the purpose of what I do. I hope that whatever I do, even now and in the near future, continues to kind of challenge the current narratives. And for you to challenge that current narrative is a form of labor. It is a form of work.
I don't think I'll ever, at least right now, identifying as an artist seems weird. I think I would consider myself more a researcher than a worker, only because I still, I think, come into a lot of these communities and a lot of these issues with still a lot of privilege, I suppose. And what does it mean to research some of these things? What are the hierarchies that exist, and how do we, I guess, acknowledge them and then try our best to try and combat them also? At least for me, everything that I try and do stems from like a deep belief in social justice. I hope that my work at least, I guess, opens up conversations about what we can do to destabilize some of these hierarchies. What can we do to also recognize maybe our own privilege, and what can we do to then move forward and really try and build a more equitable world?
I don't think work will ever stop, when it comes to, social justice, but at some point where I feel like, hey, you know what, like, I think it's time for me to step back and to have another group of young brown women to do whatever they want. Hopefully to kind of make works that's like much more relatable to I think minority women, especially, who are often kind of cast aside when it comes to this kind of books or narratives, and at some point to, I think, encourage them that, hey, like, your story is just as important as anyone else's.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of In Culture. If you enjoyed it, leave it a like, a comment, and be sure to check out our future episodes as we continue to talk to more artists, activists, and academics about all things in culture.